Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Father Tim, and welcome to our second evening devotions during Easter, where every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Here online, we are going to be looking each week at one of the different resurrection appearances of Jesus. Take a look around. I wonder what you can see. Maybe, I hope, a phone or a computer screen. The familiar surroundings of your home, maybe a desk or a table. But have you ever wondered how you see? You may remember vaguely from biology at school about the cornea, the iris, the pupils that help focus light on the cones and the rods, which then translate the visual information into electrical information and send it to the brain. The vision center is located at the back of your brain, and it's responsible for decoding all the electrical information that comes from your eyes and interprets it us into 3D color and tells us what we see. And the amazing thing about vision, it's not an objective thing. That's too much information to cope. We see what our brains notice. And each of us is different. We might notice different things about the same image or being in the same place. Tonight we are looking at the Emmaus Road encounter with the resurrected Jesus, which we are told happened on Easter Day, the evening of the first day of the week. It's an encounter with seeing at its heart. The disciples meet a stranger on the road who they don't know or recognize. They tell them all that has happened that day, how their Messiah has died, and they just don't know what to do, even though they have been told by some women that he is alive. It's not until they invite him to break bread with them that their eyes are opened. They recognize Jesus. They see. They could, of course, see who Jesus was the entire time. Jesus was in plain sight, right before them. Even though when he was speaking, their hearts were burning within them, as he opened the scripture to them. But it was only with bread that was broken and blessed that they could see who he was. It wasn't about their eyes, but their minds needing to be changed to notice what Jesus was and is. And in our house, we have a depiction of that Emmaus moment. Sophie picked it up when she was on a pilgrimage in the Holy Land. I'll share it to you now. Here is one of my favourite depictions of that moment. A simple scene and a simple table of bread and something to drink. See how rich the colours are. See how that moment Jesus is white, just like at the Transfiguration. And see how he reaches out to the two disciples, and that light is greater even than the sun, the other light in that image. Of course, the thing about seeing and witnessing is that even if we all see the same thing, we actually see it differently, because we're all different. You may notice other details about this picture. And we may each notice in the account of Jesus' last days and resurrections that as we move around the Gospels, they each record and see different things, because even those witnesses back then saw things differently. This week we are mourning and celebrating the life of Prince Philip. His life was one of extreme hardship and also extreme wealth and privilege. He could so have seen the world differently and lived differently, but instead, as a follower of Christ, he chose to see the world as best he could, the way Jesus does, through the eyes of love. Love for his wife, our Queen. Love for devoted service to our country and his family. We should give thanks that he saw the world this way. But at times we may feel like those disciples earlier on in their journey. We have journeyed and lost our way. We are amazed by events and we are looking for God, but we can't find him. Now, what has he done and where am I going? Why can I not see God? But how often do we ask Jesus to help us see? To see not just with our eyes, but with our heart and our mind. To help us see him at work. To help us see him in others. To help us see the resurrection life, which of course is everywhere. To help us not just to see, but to really see Christ here among us. We need not just to see, but to be opened to God. Just as the eyes of the disciple on the road to Emmaus were opened at the break of the open, just as the resurrection requires us to see as God sees. And such an encounter with Jesus after the resurrection reminded me of another passage in Scripture. That encounter Jesus had with the deaf and mute man in the Decapolis, and how he prays for his ears and mouth to be opened. And you can find that story in Mark 7. To be opened is not just being opened with our eyes, but our ears and our mouth and our whole being to the state the world is in and the way Christ calls us to respond. And I think this poem by Malcolm Guite from his book might also be our prayer as we ask Jesus to open our eyes and being to him so that we might see as he sees. Be opened, oh, if only we might be. Speak to a heart that's closed in on itself. Be opened, and the truth will set you free. Speak to a world imprisoned in its wealth. Be opened, learn to learn from poverty. Speak to a church that closes and excludes and makes rejection its own litany. Be opened, open to the multitudes, for whom I died, but whom you have dismissed. Be opened, 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 how you sigh. And still we do not hear you. We have missed both cry and crisis. We make no reply. Take us aside, for we are deaf and dumb. Spit on us, Lord, and touch each tongue-tied tongue. Thank you for joining me this evening for this reflection. Well.